Welcome to the channel. Today I'm gonna tell you about the movie, Meg 2, The Trench. A group descends to the bottom of the ocean where huge megalodons are waiting for them. The movie begins in the time of the dinosaurs. The ancient reptiles spend their carefree days as T-Rex suddenly approaches, but he is not the scariest thing we are shown. Suddenly a huge megalodon shark jumps ashore and devours T-Rex. The events are brought to the present day. Jason Statham as Jonas, a veteran diver, blows up the wall of a container that is on a huge ship. For some reason, toxic barrels are being dropped from the ship. Jonas, in hiding, produces a photograph of this process. He then goes into the captain's cabin and photographs the documentation while a parrot calls for help, calling the man bad. Suddenly a ship's worker enters and in classic fashion, the man fights back and escapes. He is surrounded by people wanting to get rid of him. But with all his coolness, Jonas jumps off the ship. A plane with his colleagues lands behind Jonas, and then he hands them the compromise. The action shifts to the Ocean Institute in China. There they make a test of a powerful exoskeleton. In the evening begins an event in honor of the 10th anniversary of the institute. A girl named Hillary speaks to the audience, who is glad to see everyone. And then a director named Juman comes on stage. He makes a touching speech about how his father and sister, who is Jonas's deceased wife, devoted their lives to ocean research. Then he solemnly introduces a megalodon named Heike and tells them that they were able to go down to a depth of 6,000 meters and below, where many megalodons live. Jonas's daughter wants to dive with him to a depth of 8,000 meters. The father cannot allow this because it is dangerous. Juman decides to swim with the Meg to do an experiment, but Jonas thinks it's a stupid idea. Juman thinks that he and Heike have a special bond and shouldn't worry. The shark approaches and doesn't touch Juman, but then picks up speed and almost eats the man. Luckily, he manages to get up. The uncle prepares to dive and tells Mei Ying that her grandfather was harsh with him, though he loved him. The helicopter approaches Mana 1, a marine research center. In between, Megalodon Heike breaks through the barrier and gets out to freedom. The group prepares to dive to the depths. With all systems up and running, the steep submarines begin their descent. The groups have already descended 6,000 meters to the border as they suddenly discover Mei Ying, who has snuck into the submarine. Jonas wants to go back, but still decides to leave his daughter behind. Suddenly they detect Mei Ying approaching and realize it is the escaped Heike. The groups make their way through the thermocline border, but the shark continues to chase them. Turning on the defenses, they realize they are surrounded by many Megs, but the creatures are solitary, so they decide to see where the sharks are headed. The subs swim along the hot bottom and see the Megs about to mate. Suddenly, the group approaches an underwater station. At the bottom, two men are planting explosives, and a third man detects our group approaching. An explosion occurs and Mana's team struggles to break through. The explosion causes a hole to form in the thermocline boundary. The submarine that Juman was piloting fails to escape. With no response, the colleagues at the base decide to send a rescue boat, but it is deliberately broken by someone to commit sabotage. The survivors' boat is in critical condition and oxygen is becoming scarce. They manage to contact the center. After hearing about the broken rescue boat, Jonas decides that they will walk to the base at the bottom and infiltrate it. Donning their suits, the group makes their way to the surface. As the formidable leader, Jonas walks ahead and unexpectedly encounters Juman, who managed to survive with the team. The assembled group heads toward the base, observing new species of fish and underwater plants. A team member named Lance falls behind and then the group sees a helmet falling to the bottom. Despite this, the team continues on their way. The male survivor contacts Hillary, who is secretly investing mining ore at the bottom. The group continues on their way. They have 400 meters left to reach their target. The girl, Sal, has 8% oxygen left. Suddenly, the half-fish, half-dinosaur attacks and the group has to open fire on the creatures. With difficulty, they manage to fight them off. But there is a bigger problem, the approaching megalodons. Meg grabs Sal. At the last moment they manage to reach the airlock, but Curtis's helmet fails and she is crushed by the pressure. Despite what has happened, the team needs to continue on their way to get out. Inside, they find no enemies, only the target of the extraction, rare fossils that are worth billions of dollars. The team contacts the center. For some unknown reason, the illegal miners have left the base in a hurry. The team makes it to the escape pods, but the door suddenly closes. Jess makes contact again and admits that she controls the entire base and has locked them in. She offers Jonas to cooperate, but his refusal results in the loss of one of the two pods. Jess suggests that Regis shoot Jonas and escape with Maying, but she hesitates to shoot, thus losing the last capsule. The room begins to flood. Jonas decides to swim to the other airlock without a suit. If he fills his sinuses with water, he can last a minute. Although the reality of such actions is hard to test, but let's continue. Jonas makes his way outside and climbs into the airlock at the last moment before losing consciousness. He is pulled out by a man named Mance, who through Jonas's fault spent a long time in prison. The two have a duel, Jonas fighting off the man with all his toughness. The room is nearly flooded, but Jonas manages to open the door. The group decides to get out on Manta's boat, but the Meg's defense system fails. Juman turns on the lights throughout the base to distract the sharks. The team swims out of the thermal layer and observe a huge hole. Upon reaching the base, they see that it has already been taken over by the enemy. Meanwhile, Mance also manages to get to the surface. Jonas's team fights off the mercenaries, freeing DJ and Mac. Mance meets up with Jess and reports back to Jonas. Several megalodons that snuck through the hole approach the station. Jess informs Hillary about the Megs, saying not to worry as the glass is safe, and then of course the monster devours her. The team sails away from the base, not using the engine so as not to make any noise. They are pursued by mercenaries and expectantly Meg devours them too. The team needs to get to Mary Island to warn people of the monster's approach. Not far from the island, a boatload of tourists is devoured by a huge octopus. The mercenaries have already landed on the island with Hillary, but here they are attacked by those strange half-dinosaurs. Meanwhile, the megalodons approach the shore, devouring people along the way. Hillary is left all alone, and as all villains should be, she dies. Jonas, wearing explosive harpoons, sets out to exterminate the megalodons. Meanwhile, Juman and Mac sneak into the ammonium nitrate building to make explosives, but the escaped mercenaries also run in. DJ and Regis, fleeing from the monster, also end up in this building. Juman opens the gate and they manage to escape. Meanwhile, Jonas catches a wave and throws a harpoon at the creature, blowing it up. While Juman fights off one creature, Mac gets into a helicopter. The creatures turn out to be more and more, but they manage to take off in an epic explosion. Jonas prepares to launch a harpoon, but his hunt is thwarted by Mance. Fun Island is attacked by a huge octopus that grabs the helicopter while Jonas tries not to be eaten. The tentacles grab Maying, but her uncle saves her. This time, the unkillable Jonas fights off Mentas and expectantly Mance ends up being eaten by Maying. Juman manages to insert a bomb into the octopus, but the octopus grabs him. Unexpectedly, the shark Heike raised by him comes to the rescue. After making sure his daughter is okay, Jonas sets out to rescue Juman and Mac. Like a superhero, Jonas grabs a propeller and stabs the creature with it. Heike approaches and as expected, Juman doesn't touch them. All the horror is over and the survivors are having a nice time. Good has won and that's the end of the movie.